What's going on, guys, and welcome back to #AskGSM here today, episode 379 for Wednesday, March 3rd, 2021. I am Graham GSM Matthews. Hope you guys are doing well. If you want to send in a question to the show, be sure to do so by tweeting me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the #AskGSM. Find me on Facebook as well, facebook.com/Graham.GSM.Matthews. Leave your question on the post that I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not on the wall itself. And last but certainly not least, drop your question down below in the comment section of this very video. I'll include your question in next week's edition. One quick cheap plug. Actually, I guess kind of two. We had our Bobby Lashley interview go live on Wednesday, or rather on Monday here on the channel, with the all-new WWE Champion who won the WWE Championship at the end of Raw on Monday, which was an amazing moment. We got a lot to talk about with Bobby Lashley here in today's video. Not with Bobby Lashley, but in terms of about Bobby Lashley heading into WrestleMania. But that interview was taped last Friday, 3 days before he became WWE Champion. Last week, we had The Miz here on the channel. That video went live on Thursday. So we had The Miz last Thursday, Bobby Lashley on Monday, and today one half of the WWE Women's Tag Team Champions, Shayna Baszler, the Queen of Spades herself, talking all about her return to NXT, her Raw run, Raw Underground, a 4 Horsewoman versus 4 Horsewoman match, and so much more. So if you would please do me a favor and check out those exclusive interviews here on the channel, I would greatly appreciate it. The Miz one is available in article form on Bleacher Report, as is the Bobby Lashley one, and the Shayna Baszler one should be available soon enough here on, or it's already available here on the channel, but in addition to dailyddt.com. Again, talking all about tonight's WWE Women's Tag Team Championship match with her and Nia Jax against Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez. And I've said this before, but for those that haven't heard the other videos this week, thank you guys so much for helping me surpass 5,000 subscribers on Sunday. Really, really cool milestone. I've been doing this now for a dozen years. And a lot of you are probably newer subscribers, only been here the last couple of years, since the WrestleRant video days and whatnot, which is now a podcast and the name of my website. But I've been doing this since 2009, so I really appreciate all you guys for coming along for the ride and subscribing, and hopefully we can continue to climb that mountain on our road to 10,000 subscribers, and so on and so forth. So anyway, guys, let's get started here today. First with Mr. Marceau RJ via text. So he sent this in via text as a last-minute question this morning. If you text me, you get first priority, but I would, I assume that most of you listening don't have my number, and nor should you, unless you're a good friend of mine. So anyway, Mr. Marceau, his question was, if you grew up in the 80s, which territory would you have wanted to live in and attend shows? That's a really good question. So, I was thinking about that this morning when he sent it in. And there's so many great territories that you can name. I was never the biggest territory fan, just because obviously I'm a newer fan, but I haven't gone back and watched the territories the same way that I've gone back and watched old WCW shows or ECW shows. And I would say either one of those. I would have loved to have gone to a Nitro taping or an ECW taping back in the day. I think that would have been really, really cool. Or a Lucha Underground taping. That's not a territory, but I can tell you right now, to be in the temple for one of those Lucha tapings, specifically seasons 1 and 2, that would have been incredible. But you're talking territories. So the two that came to mind, and again, I'm not great with the territories. RJ is a bit better with that stuff than I am. But two that come to mind. One, Smoky Mountain Wrestling, just because I've heard so much about it. Run by Jim Cornette. Jericho came out of there. Lance Storm came out of there. A lot of other great talent either originated there or, went through there at some other point. So I'm actually not sure if Jericho started there or if they just kind of went through there. Did Lance Storm and Jericho. But a lot of great talent did go through Smoky Mountain Wrestling. So I'm going to say Smoky Mountain. And also the footage that I've seen from those shows, it seems like it would have been a fun time. And the AWA. The AWA had a lot of great stars before they went on to WWE, most notably Hulk Hogan, before he went on to WWE and Hulkamania was born. So I guess obviously knowing that at the time, we wouldn't have known that he would go on to become this mega superstar in WWE. But how cool would it have been to be able to say, being at one of those AWA shows and saying, hey, I saw Terry Bollea before he became Hulk Hogan in WWE and really blew up into what he is today. I think that'd be really, really cool. So again, it's a tough question for me because I'm not overly familiar with the territories, but Smoky Mountain comes to mind and AWA comes to mind. The next question from YouTube comes from, I don't know how you pronounce your name here, but Gelai, it's Geli, Churling 687. They said, been a fan of your stuff for a while now, especially how you review all the WWE and AEW shows. Well, thank you, man. I appreciate it. Their question was, is this the worst finals that we can have for the AEW Women's Tournament Finals in terms of interest and possibilities? No offense to either wrestler, but I have zero interest in seeing either of the two finalists get a title shot, let alone possibly win. I can't actually think of a finals matchup I could be less interested in out of all the people who could have conceivably made the finals. Well, that's really fucking harsh. I don't know about the worst combination. Listen, Nyla Rose has gotten a lot better. She is far from the worst person. I mean, going back and thinking on the U.S. bracket, Maddie, what was her name? Renzowski? Mike Wazowski, whatever the hell her name is. I know nothing about her, so her probably being in the finals would have been worse just because, and maybe not actually, because she's a fresher face, she's decent, she's got potential. Nyla Rose has been to the top of the mountain multiple times before. She's a former AEW Women's Champion. She's been on pay-per-view multiple times. I have no desire to see her face Hikaru Shida. So that, to me, just gives away the outcome of tonight's number one contenders match, and then I think Mizunami's probably going to win. I can almost guarantee is going to win that match. Not only did Shida beat Nyla Rose to win the championship, Shida then beat Nyla Rose in a rematch of Full Gear. And their first match was a no DQ match. So again, I ask you, what is the point of going back to that match again? There is no point, which is why they're definitely going to have Mizunami win. And Mizunami, I will say, that's exactly how you pronounce her name. I'm not sure. I apologize. But what I've seen from her, and I'll talk more about the AEW Women's Tournament as we go along here. Some other people ask questions about it. But, I will say the wrestling overall has been very good, specifically on the YouTube shows, and Dynamite too, because I thought Thunder Rosa and Layla Hirsch a few weeks ago was really good. Britt Baker and Nyla Rose had the worst possible outcome, which would have been, obviously, Nyla Rose winning. There's only two outcomes, but Nyla Rose winning was the worst outcome of the two, just because Britt Baker should have not only won the whole thing, she should be the women's champion right now. I love Shida. I think she's had a really good reign overall, although a bit not anticlimactic, but clearly she has not been a focal point on this show. That's the problem with the Shida title reign. But Britt Baker is on the show almost every single week. She's a great personality. She can talk. She and Shida have history. Shida has beaten her once before on Dynamite almost exactly a year ago. She should have been the one to face Shida for that championship. There is no doubt in my mind about that. So maybe the Mizunami match will probably be a filler match. Shida wins and then Baker goes for the belt. I'm not sure. But Rosa got further in the tournament than Baker did. So how do you justify Baker getting a title shot before someone like a Thunder Rosa or a Nyla Rose again? That's what doesn't make any sense to me. So to answer your question, no, I don't think it's the worst possible match they can do. But in terms of an intriguing finals, it really isn't. It really isn't. I completely agree with you there. I think it'll be a good match, and I think Nyla Rose has done her best in-ring work to date in AEW in this tournament. Some of the Shida matches were pretty good, but her match with Britt Baker I thought was really good. The Ty Conti match was pretty much what I thought it would be. And then the most recent match on the YouTube show, on YouTube, which on Monday night with her and Thunder Rosa, I thought was great. I thought that was a really, really good match and one of her better matches to date. So, again, I don't care. It's not the worst match they can do. I think that's a slight exaggeration. But in terms of, I don't know, in terms of matches they could do, the real finals, it honestly didn't even really matter who won from the Japan side. The U.S. side should have been a Britt Baker or a Thunder Rosa. The Japan side, Maki Ito, people were really disappointed that she got bumped early. The Twitter stuff, I mentioned this a few weeks ago, the whole deity of shit thing I thought was weird. But her in the ring, she's really, really good as a wrestler. So she could have been in the finals. You have Emi Sakura, or Sakura, I think it's Sakura. Yuki Sakazaki, any one of those women who are fairly, familiar with the AEW audience. They've been on the show before. I guess Mizunami, she may have been at Double or Nothing 2 years ago. I don't know. Maybe it's for the better that she's a fresher face, and we know Sakura wasn't going to win. I mean, Sakura's already faced Riho before. I don't give a fuck about Sakura or Sakura. She's had, a couple of good matches too in the tournament, but I just don't care to see her in the title picture. I really think it should have been Maki Ito, and if not Maki, because I guess she got over with the U.S. audience after she'd already been eliminated in the tournament, which I'm not sure when that was taped. But Yuka probably should have been in the finals, in my opinion, over Mizunami. But if they want to have fresh faces on the tournament, fine. I still think Mizunami's going to lose, as she should. We know nothing about her. So, I think the tournament, the wrestling has been really, really good. but the booking has absolutely been flawed, specifically on the U.S. side. Brandon A. from YouTube's got a couple of questions here. Their first question was, you answered a Devin Booker question last week. Did you become an NBA fan while I wasn't following the channel last year? That absolutely blew my mind, LOL. The only reason I answered that question was because RJ asked it. And RJ and I have a running joke that I'll occasionally catch up with sports. I think I watched more sports last year in 2020 than I have at any other point in my lifetime, to be completely honest with you. I wasn't watching Monday Night Football every week. I wasn't watching the NBA Finals every single week. I hardly follow sports as it is. So really anything above nothing is a step up for me. So again, that's not really saying a lot. But I did pay attention to the Suns winning streak last year, the Phoenix Suns. Not sure if I talked a lot about them here on the channel, but I would joke on Twitter, let's go Suns. They're undefeated in the bubble. Let's go. I always watch. I say always, but I watched the Super Bowl start to finish this year, last year. I'll make some comments about the Chiefs, and because they won last year, they lost this year. Buccaneers, stuff like that. So really, I'm going to be completely honest with you. I just take, if I see something going on. I made comments about the MLB draft last year. I made comments about the NFL draft, NBA draft, stuff like that. If I see enough people talking about it on my timeline, and I follow a lot of sports-oriented people, then I will make a comment about it, which is completely uneducated and probably just taking someone else's opinion, whether it's right or wrong or whatever, and putting it on my own timeline, or doing further research and then tweeting about that. Again, that is not any opinion of my own. It's just some other journalist's opinion, which I guess is plagiarism, but it's all in jest. I'm not actually going to pretend that I'm this diehard basketball fan, but you know what? I will say this. I did not become a big NBA fan while you weren't following the channel last year, to answer your question. But what I did do was go to the Basketball Hall of Fame with Alexis and her brother for his birthday back in October. That was a lot of fun. I've been there before a handful of times. I hadn't been there in well over a decade. So it was cool to be back. We got to shoot some hoops. That was a lot of fun. I really built up a sweat there. Took a lot of great pictures, did some fun stuff, got food afterward. That's over in my neck of the woods here in Connecticut. It's in Massachusetts, but I'm in Connecticut, so it's only really like an hour away in Springfield from where I live. But so I don't really follow basketball that closely, but I am more open to watching more games, because some of the games were on before Dynamite last year, so I would watch those. So of everyone that I've seen, though, of everyone's potential, Devin Booker stands out to me as someone who feels like a star. So again, I don't follow NBA that closely, but from an outsider's point of view, from an outsider's perspective, he has a lot of star-making potential. So looking forward to seeing what Devin Booker does in the future. Brandon's second question, realistic fantasy booking time based on what is happening on WWE TV right now. Name 6 matches that would make a Fastlane a top pay-per-view this year, while still building and not giving away the WrestleMania card. For a comparison, look how great No Way Out 2001 was, but didn't take away from an amazing WrestleMania. And I've said this before too, that the February pay-per-views, just to be completely honest with you, are a complete waste of time. Not always, they haven't always been. Those early No Way Out pay-per-views from 2000, 01, 02 were fucking great. Even the 03 one, I think, from what I can recall, was pretty good. Those early No Way Out shows were really, really good. Very, very good. So, they haven't had a pay-per-view like that in literally 20 years. Some of the early Elimination Chamber pay-per-views, I can't even say those. I mean, No Way Out in 08, 09, I like those shows. Elimination Chamber 2011 was probably, before this year, the last truly newsworthy February pay-per-view. Fastlane has never been newsworthy. They have never given a shit about Fastlane, which is why I don't give a shit about Fastlane. I think any pay-per-views in between Royal Rumble and WrestleMania are completely pointless. I think what they should do instead is do special episodes of Raw and SmackDown. So if you want to do something where, you want to build, between point A and point B, that being the Rumble and WrestleMania, and you don't have a pay-per-view to do it, you just do it on Raw. I feel like with the in-between pay-per-views, in between Royal Rumble and WrestleMania, they have 1 or 2 matches that they should be doing en route to WrestleMania, but there's a lot of other matches on those shows that should just not be happening and are only happening so they can fill out a pay-per-view card. Case in point, look at Elimination Chamber. The top 2 chamber matches were really, really good. The U.S. title match, I guess, achieved getting the belt off of Bobby without Bobby Lashley getting pinned. But like the women's tag team title match was a complete afterthought. Like I hardly remember it a week and a half later. Had it not happened on that show, no one would have complained. And those were the only 4 matches on the show. I mean, I know they had Miz cashing in and Roman and Bryan, which lasted all of like a minute or 2. But really, on paper, we had 4 matches. We had 4 matches at the pay-per-view. And they could have just done those 2 big matches. They don't even need to be Elimination Chamber matches. Elimination Chamber, and I've always said this, would be better suited at some other point in the year, whether it be after WrestleMania or in the middle of the summer or at the end of the year at Survivor Series or something. You know what I mean? I feel like that would make more sense. But at any rate, you're asking me for a top Fastlane pay-per-view card using realistic booking. Well, one match would be, and I would rather see them save this until after WrestleMania, I've said that multiple times, but Daniel Bryan and Roman Reigns. That is a top match they can do at the Fastlane pay-per-view. If you wanted to do Brock, and I mean, it depends what WrestleMania is going to be looking like. If we're getting Bobby and Drew and maybe Brock at WrestleMania, I don't want to see Bobby and Miz again at Fastlane. I think that should be done with and move on from Miz in the title picture. I think Bobby and Drew should be the main event of that pay-per-view, or one of the main events, probably Roman and Bryan. But then as a result of that, you can have Sheamus interfere, cost Drew the match, build to a rematch at WrestleMania, and then build to Bobby and Brock at WrestleMania. So Bobby and Drew is a match I would do. I would do Roman Reigns and Daniel Bryan for the Universal Championship. Man, honestly, you say, like, make 6 matches and look at No Way Out 01. Back in 01, dude, everyone was over. There's a lot of people on the current roster who we don't give a fuck about. They are not the roster of 2001. Like, there's a lot of talented people, and the matches might be better, but they're not nearly as over as a lot of the people from 20 years ago. Not even D'Lo Brown, you know what I mean? Like, D'Lo Brown was more over than half of the roster today. So, like, I could recommend Bianca Belair and Carmella to ensure that Belair goes on to WrestleMania to face Sasha. You could do that match. You could do Charlotte and Asuka, but even though that's a top match for Raw, I feel like I've seen it a million fucking times. Shayna and Nia versus Naomi and Lana, who cares? Like, there's matches that I could fill out the pay-per-view with that would make sense. But you also don't want to blow your load before WrestleMania. Again, I know you're talking No Way Out 01, but the difference between now and then was that the product was just so much hotter at that point. And there were more stories with a better crowd. We have no crowd right now. Not a lot of great, intriguing stories. If you do Roman and Bryan, maybe Edge and Christian versus the Usos, if Jimmy's back in time and Christian's on the show. That's one top match I would love to see. But that's like 3 matches right there. Maybe 4 if you count Asuka and Charlotte. Bianca and Carmella makes sense. That's not a big No Way Out 01 worthy match. For the tag team stuff, I have no clue. The Raw tag team division sucks. The SmackDown tag team division, I would imagine that match at Fastlane is going to be Ziggler and Rude versus the Profits again. I would only hope they do it there so they don't hold off until WrestleMania to do it. Because there is no reason to do that at WrestleMania. But honestly, I don't know. There really aren't a lot of big matches they can do on that pay-per-view, just given the current roster and the current landscape of things heading into WrestleMania. But again, my top 3 matches for that show, not every match on the show has to be a banger, but my top 3 main matches, my marquee matches for Fastlane, Bobby and Drew for the WWE Championship, Edge and Christian versus the Usos, and Roman Reigns versus Daniel Bryan for the Universal Championship. His third question, I know you started watching wrestling in 2008 after WrestleMania 24. What are some of your favorite WrestleMania shows and matches that happened before 2008? Also, besides Randy Orton versus Seth Rollins and AJ Styles versus Chris Jericho, what do you believe to be the hidden gem matches from WrestleMania that people forget about? A few examples for me are the 6-man tag from WrestleMania 12, Christian versus Jericho at 20, Triple H and Owen at 14, and the IC title ladder match at WrestleMania 32. I don't know if this is a hidden gem. It's just one of the first matches that come to mind. But CM Punk versus Chris Jericho from WrestleMania 27. That show sucked. But Orton and Punk. Did I say Jericho? I meant to say Orton and Punk. Orton and CM Punk from WrestleMania 27. The show was not good, but again, I feel like so many people talk about that match. Is it really underrated if a lot of people regard it as being good? You know what I mean? But, I would put that on there anyway. And I've done a list of, the most underrated matches in WrestleMania history. The ones that you mentioned, I would put those on there. I'm trying to think of other matches. Hidden gem matches. I'm thinking, there's just so many, Any one of them at 21? Trying to think, obviously, Angle and Jericho is one of the greatest matches of all time. I like Jericho and Owens from WrestleMania 33. I like the Raw Tag Team title match on that show. I thought both of those matches were pretty underrated. AJ Styles and Shane McMahon, not really sure if it's underrated, but that was one of the best matches of WrestleMania 33 as well. 34, you had that great Rollins, Miz, and Balor triple threat match for the Intercontinental Championship, which, again, I feel like doesn't get talked about enough. That was a really, really good match. Orton and AJ from 35 was pretty good. Not great, but it was pretty good. And again, I'm not sure if it was a hidden gem, but it was solid. Again, I'm trying to think back. I'm trying to think back to the older WrestleManias, but I haven't seen a lot of the WrestleManias in full in a long time. So it's hard to say. But I do agree with Jericho and Christian. I think that's a really, really good pick. Again, 21... Eddie and Rey, maybe Eddie and Rey to kick off the show, I thought was a great match. Not a lot of people talk about that one. 22, Edge and Mick Foley. Again, I feel like a lot of people regard that as being a great match, but I might put that one on there. 23, I can't really think of many matches that would fit the bill there. 24, JBL and Finlay, to be honest with you, had a pretty good Belfast brawl. Honestly, I think they had a pretty good match on that show. 25, the Hardys match, Matt versus Jeff, I thought was great. I remember that show for featuring Triple H and Randy Orton. And obviously, Shawn Michaels versus Taker. The main event sucked. Shawn and Taker was great. But you also had that really good Jeff versus Matt match in the middle of the show. 26, CM Punk versus Rey Mysterio. I'm going off the WrestleManias that I remember in the last 10 years. CM Punk and Rey Mysterio from 26 had a pretty good match. They had better matches down the road, including it Over the Limit. But that was a pretty good match on that show. I already talked about 27. 28, Punk and Jericho, people remember. Rock and Cena, obviously. I might put, what was the other match I was going to say? Kane and Orton had a decent match on that show. A lot better than I thought it had any right to be. And Kane won clean, too, which was refreshing. So, there was that one. WrestleMania 29? Can't think of any. Honestly, I can't think of any, great matches from that show that don't get the respect they deserve. WrestleMania 30, can't think of any. 31 you already mentioned. 32 you already mentioned. And 33 and 34 I already talked about. So those are some of the hidden gems that I remember that I would definitely put on that list. In terms of favorite WrestleManias, shows, and matches that happened before 2008, I've absolutely talked about this before. 2 WrestleManias I have watched in full multiple times as a fan that happened before 2008 include WrestleMania 17, obviously, and WrestleMania 21. 2 of my favorite WrestleManias that didn't happen in the last 12, 13 years. So I love those 2 WrestleManias. Matches? That's a great question. I honestly really like Vince and Shane from WrestleMania 17. Taker and Triple H on that show was great. Rock and Stone Cold was a great main event. 19, I liked their third match as well. Rock and Stone Cold at WrestleMania 19. I thought that was a really, really good match. And I'm not sure if we mentioned this, but Jericho and Shawn from WrestleMania 19 was a fantastic match. Benoit, Triple H, and Shawn from 20. Don't love the whole show, but that is a very good main event. That's a great main event. One of the greatest triple threats in WWE history. And I also love WrestleMania 21. I think that from start to finish is a vastly underrated WrestleMania. You have new stars crowned, new stars made, new champions crowned, a lot of memorable moments. So I would go with that one as well at WrestleMania 21. Other than those, I didn't give a fuck about the Attitude Era WrestleManias. 14, 15, 16 I thought were trash. 18 was solid. 20 was good. I really liked WrestleMania 6 when I watched that one. Took place in Canada, had Hogan and Warrior as the main event. I really liked that WrestleMania. and it had a hot crowd to boot. WrestleMania 10, I also watched about a year ago with Alexis, and that was also a really good WrestleMania. So I guess any of those. In his fourth question, I know it has been said that predictability isn't always bad if the predictable outcome makes sense. I'm starting to see a problem with that, though, when it comes to AEW. Outside of debuts like Sting and Jon Moxley, they are really subpar when it comes to surprises. I don't need Vince Russo booking, but everything they do seems to be extremely linear. I love the in-ring wrestling on AEW, but I find it very hard to think of storylines, angles, or finishes that made me go, wow, so far in its short run. They have to get better at that sports entertainment aspect. I'm not saying BWWE, but the show still needs to do more than just having good wrestling matches and stale but sensible story progression. The working relationship with Impact and New Japan has been somewhat formulaic. Even debuts like Moxley, Sting, Miro, Brody Lee, and Kenta were heavily rumored. I agree and I disagree. I think actually they do surprises sometimes better than WWE does. One thing I will say they dropped the ball on big time, no pun intended, was the fact that they did not have Big Show debut on Dynamite. They put out the press release and they said, Paul White's coming to AEW, blah, blah, blah. How the hell do you not save him for a Dynamite surprise? Because I didn't even know he left WWE. Excuse me. If Paul White showed up on Dynamite instead of the press release announcing his signing, I would have freaked the fuck out. I don't even care about Big Show, but I would be like, what is going on here? Like that would literally be like Lex Luger territory. They have Paul White on Dynamite without people even realizing that he left WWE. That would be awesome. So they didn't do that. That was a giant surprise. That wasn't a Dynamite surprise, but it was a surprise that he signed. The Sting one was great. That was an awesome debut. Again, like you said, it had been rumored for a long time, but by December, people, I think, kind of forgot about it. The Good Brothers were rumored. Kenta had been rumored for a while, but his debut was still cool. I still think they do a great job of surprises, honestly, even more so than WWE sometimes, nowadays anyway. More so than NXT. Like, I'm surprised you said that, because usually it's the other way around that people are complaining about NXT when it comes to, like, lack of surprises and stuff like that. So I would say that about NXT. AEW, too, to a certain extent. I do agree that a lot of their booking is formulaic. It's a good formulaic in that, they have the right people win, usually, unless it's the fucking AEW Women's Title Tournament. They usually have the right people win. They have really, really good matches. The feuds make sense. They're not using everyone right now. Like, I could not give two shits about Miro and Kip Sabian versus best friends, Chuck Taylor and Orange Cassidy. I don't care. I really don't care. So, stuff like that should not be on Revolution. Shorter shows helps with the pay-per-views. I know they have 4 pay-per-views a year, but like a 3.5-hour show is completely ridiculous. Especially when they're not that good, like All Out. That was a waste of money. I didn't spend money on it because I write for Bleach Report, so I get it for free. But if I paid for it, I would have felt ripped off because that show was not very good by AEW standards. But I'm going to go ahead and disagree. I think they do a good job with the surprises. The show has more of a must-see feel to it than SmackDown does, Raw, even NXT. Could it be better? Absolutely. You will not hear more, definitely more people than me, but, I try to be unbiased. I try to be impartial. I try to call it down the middle. I try to call it like I see it with both NXT and AEW. If they do something dumb or they're not doing as good of a show as they possibly could, I'll say something. NXT has absolutely lost a step. That is unquestionable since last year. I still think it's a better show than people are giving it credit for, but it's not as must-see as Dynamite. Dynamite has its issues too. A lot of the booking doesn't make sense. Not a lot of, but some of the booking doesn't make sense. Who they feature. Jade Cargill, who cares? Who cares? Abaddon, I don't give a shit about. I know she hasn't been on the show in a while, but Sheeta hasn't been on the show in a while, but I think there's a reason for that because she competed over in Japan during the tournament. She was on one of those YouTube shows in the last couple of weeks. I think on Sunday, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, so the women's division needs more attention. The tag team division is great, but some of the stories, like you said, are very linear, and they drag things out for way too long. Way too fucking long. I know we complain about the main roster rushing things, but AEW drags things out for way longer than they should. To the point where, yeah, I guess the payoff is usually worth it, but the Bucks turning on the Good Brothers, that should have happened a month ago. Or at least a couple of weeks ago. We know where it's going. It's the fact that they're dragging it out is ridiculous. Like the wedding shit being dragged out for as long as it was, ridiculous. Who cares? The Sting and Allen versus Team Taz stuff, I know they dragged it out because we have a pay-per-view coming up this weekend. But again, then just wait to hold off on Sting until like January. You know, I feel like they blew their load with that way too quick. And now Sting is on the show every single week and he doesn't feel remotely as special. So again, AEW I think is still a very good show. I enjoy watching the show. I'm not watching it first tonight, despite the Shaq match being advertised. I'm watching NXT first. Excuse me. I'm more excited for the women's tag team title match personally than I am Cody and Red Velvet versus Shaq and Jade Cargill. I don't care. But yeah, I mean, I think the surprises they need to work on, but I really don't think it's that big of an issue as you're making it out to be, at least in my opinion. No L from Facebook. Now that Bobby Lashley has won the WWE Championship, could we finally see a Brock Lesnar match? Absolutely. Bobby has never been booked as well as he is right now. He has never been booked to look like a star as much as he has in the last year. And that includes his 06-07 run. You know, he was on fire at that point, but I don't think anyone was clamoring to see Bobby Lashley as WWE Champion the way they are right now. The guy is just fucking ready. I don't know if it's going to happen at WrestleMania, if you do it down the road. I think the match is more of a possibility now than it has ever been before. The problem is that I feel like if they did the match, Brock would win. So if you gave me a choice, do we not do the match at all, or do you do the match and have Brock win? I would honestly probably go with the former, but the thing is that it depends on the match is booked. If it's like a competitive match, then absolutely. But if you do it right now, I think it'd be dumb to have Bobby lose because he's at the top of his game. If you do it in 6 months and Bobby's kind of cooled off, then you do the match and Brock wins and Bobby looks good in defeat, then I can kind of see it. I really think Bobby should beat Brock, but Brock loses a lot lately. He lost to Roman a couple of times. He lost to Rollins a few times. He lost to Drew McIntyre. You can't have the guy out there all the time losing. Lost to Goldberg. You can't have him. I mean, I know Brock is Brock and he's almost indestructible, but in terms of his booking, but you should have him win a few more times than, once a year. So, I don't know. I would really want Bobby to win. And Brock, I don't know. Brock beating him just doesn't excite me very much. So, I'm very skeptical, but I do think now is the time to do the match. Personally, I think Drew, Brock, and Bobby WrestleMania, that sounds fucking awesome. To me, that sounds awesome. And I would love to see that at WrestleMania. Not sure if it's likely, but just because you get Brock and Bobby can pin Drew to retain the title. You know what I mean? Like, you don't have to do Brock and Bobby straight up. Triple threats are where Lesnar thrives anyway. Fatal four-ways, multi-man matches. So I say let's do it. I think that'd be great. Noah has one more question here. No L from Facebook. Who would be your top 5 SmackDown superstars from the early 2000s? It's a good question. The first 5 names that came to mind were Kurt Angle, Brock Lesnar, Eddie Guerrero, John Cena, and Rey Mysterio. Now, cases can be made for The Undertaker too, I guess. I completely forgot about Taker. So I probably would take out Rey Mysterio, just because he wasn't at the top of the card the same way a lot of these. Like, he wasn't holding the Intercontinental title. He was a part of like the Cruiserweight division up until like 2003. And it was a big part of the show, but he wasn't really a world champion top star until 05-06. So I'll replace Rey Mysterio with The Undertaker. But yeah, Kurt Angle was there for most of the 2000s. He was drafted to Raw, but that wasn't until 05. Lesnar was synonymous with SmackDown from 02 to 05, or 04 rather. Eddie had a lot of great stuff in that period as a tag team champion, as the US champion, as a WWE champion. So got to put Eddie on there. And John Cena, his whole rise started in 02 and culminated in 05, all while a part of the SmackDown brand. And then Taker was there forever. Taker was just SmackDown. He really was the face of SmackDown. Maybe not the face, but like Roman Reigns talks about how, it's my yard now. The Undertaker was a pillar of the Blue brand for many, 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 many years. I would say consistently from 02 through 2010, in my opinion. So I'd have to put Taker on there too. At noob_n_code 1991, what do you think of WWE bringing diversity to their champions who are people of color? After almost a year, do you think that AEW needs some improvement with that? WWE still has a lot of flaws. The fact that it took them this long to have 3 black WWE champions. And yes, I know Mark Henry and King Booker were both world heavyweight champions. And even then, that's only 2 people. I'm talking about the WWE Championship. And the ECW title was held by Bobby and Mark, and Ezekiel Jackson was the final ECW champion. But I'm talking about like top titles. The Rock, Kofi Kingston, and Bobby Lashley are the only 3 WWE champions they have had in what, fucking 50 years? That's ridiculous. 50, 60 years is completely ridiculous. So we're not quite there yet. They're making progress. But yeah, and just their champions in general. I mean, we have a black WWE champion right now. Sasha Banks, this is a SmackDown Women's Champion. Io Shirai, she's not black, but she's Japanese. She's the NXT Women's Champion. Keith Lee was NXT Champion last year, last summer. R-Truth is almost always the 24/7 champion. The Tag Team Champions are currently held by the Hurt Business. They're black Tag Team Champions, which is cool. On SmackDown, we have... Who are the SmackDown Tag Team Champions? It was the Street Profits, and currently it's Rude and Ziggler. Big E is the current Intercontinental Champion. Apollo Crews is the number 1 contender, and if he wins it, he would also be a black Intercontinental Champion. So, it's cool. It's really cool to see so much diversity, because I remember seeing a picture that I think the New Day shared, maybe about 5 years ago. It was, I think, Sasha, New Day, Rich Swann. There might have been someone else in that picture. But they had a picture about 4 or 5 years ago, and it was of all those people, and it was like all the black champions that they had at that point. They have even more now than they did then, which is really, really cool. So, again, I think the diversity in WWE, it can always be better. It could always be better. We have Asuka. She's the current Raw Women's Champion, and she's Japanese, I believe, as well. So, that's also really, really cool. So, again, I think the diversity, is there. Could it be better? Absolutely. With AEW, I'm not going to sit here and complain, they've never had a black AEW champion or a black women's champion. But actually, they did. Nyla Rose was the first or the second ever AEW women's champion, and she is a black women's champion. So she actually counts. She does. And Akira Shida is not like your typical American blonde, blah, blah, blah. She's Japanese, I believe. And she has been the women's champion since last May. So it's not like they don't have diversity. They have a lot of diversity in their women's division. The tag team titles have so far been held by SCU, and Scorpio Sky was one of those people that was the inaugural AEW World Tag Team Champion, by the way. So one of their first ever tag team champions was black. We had Kenny Omega and Adam Page, FTR, and now the Young Bucks. The World Championship has only been held by Jericho, Moxley, and Omega. That's it. It's not like it's had 10 different champions and none of them have been black. But, that does raise a very good question, though. I'd have to look at the entire roster, but it did make me think. It did, really make me think about how, and the TNT title has only been held by Cody, Darby, and Brody, I believe. So, no black TNT champions yet. But it really did make me think about, if AEW were to have like this breakout black performer, who would it be? I know Nyla Rose for the women, but I'm talking about the guys. Like, there's obviously Scorpio Sky. There must be someone. There's definitely a couple of other people on the roster. I know you have Top Flight. There was a picture that was shared. A while ago. Not a while ago, but like a couple of weeks ago, of like all their black performers. I would have to go look in the roster, and I'm definitely missing a couple of people. I know for a fact that I am. But man, I don't know. I know Scorpio Sky, but I'm trying to think like, who else can be like, if they were to have like a Kofi Kingston-esque moment, which it would still mean a lot, but like with Kofi, it meant a lot because he was there for 11 years and they had only had one other black champion before in The Rock. I don't. They don't have to necessarily be black. Like, it could be Latino, they can be Japanese. It really, like, they could put the belt on fucking Ibushi if they wanted to. You know what I mean? It doesn't have to be like, who's going to be the first black champion? But it is an interesting question to raise, just because I don't know, thinking about it now, how many of those, I really don't know. I know they tweeted out a picture a while ago with Nyla in it, Top Flight, Scorpio Sky. There was definitely more people, but I just can't think of them off the top of my head, and I apologize in advance. But yeah, I think AEW could benefit from some more diversity. It's not like every single champion they've had have all been white. You know, they have Shida, they had Rose, they had Scorpio Sky. Could it be more? Absolutely, and I hope it is more than just those guys at some point. But we'll see. We'll see. I think WWE's doing a good job with it. It could always be better. And, There's always issues with that type of stuff in all the companies, I feel, but definitely WWE. But at least they're taking the right steps in the proper direction, so that's cool to see. Next question comes from, also noob actually, with the Raw and SmackDown women's divisions lacking in heels and faces, which superstars should turn heel and turn face? It's a good question. Thinking about it off the top of my head, Sasha Banks, who I would call a tweener anyway, because she acts like a heel, but she faces the heels. So it's weird. Like, she comes across completely unlikable. Even since the Bayley feud, she was always unlikable during that feud too. So I would argue she's never really been a full-fledged face. But Sasha should go back to being a full-fledged heel. And then for Raw, Charlotte Flair. Now, I sound like a broken record, but Charlotte just absolutely works better, inarguably works better as a heel. I know the babyface stuff is refreshing, but she's still also, like Sasha, just unlikable. She's just not a very likable character. The face stuff since she came back has not been very good. It's either her or Asuka. And Asuka was already kind of a heel with the Kabuki Warrior stuff, but I would rather cheer for Asuka than over Charlotte Flair, in my opinion. So I'm going to say turn Charlotte and turn Sasha. At Reborn Again from Twitter, John Ritland, check out his stuff on YouTube. Real Honesty with John Ritland, he does great work. His question was, do you anticipate they'll use Bobby Lashley right as WWE Champion, like giving him a long run, or do you think they'll have him drop it at WrestleMania and be pushed back to the mid-card? That's the million-dollar question, because how many people over the years have we seen them give the belt to, and then literally as soon as they drop it, it's right back to the tag team division or the mid-card? It doesn't happen a lot, but I can name 4 people off the top of my head. Kofi Kingston, who deserved way better than that. With how over he got, he deserved to be a main eventer beyond that, but they wanted him in the New Day tag team. Xavier got hurt, whatever. But yeah, so Kofi is one. Jinder Mahal, and rightfully so, because the guy should have never been a main eventer to begin with, but he never got another crack at a main event title shot after that. And then you look at The Miz from 10 years ago, is literally as soon as he dropped it, and he won the belt back recently for 8 days, but he never really got a full-on world championship run beyond 2011. Jack Swagger in 2010 was another one. He was a one-time champ and was never pushed to that level again, so why even bother putting the belt on these people? I know for different people it's different reasons. Like with Jinder, they wanted to expand into India. That's great, but he should have never been WWE champion in the first place. Maybe Jack Swagger if they built him up right, but they never did. That was the problem. So, anyway, I'm hoping Bobby will not fall into that category. Bobby even said to me when I interviewed him a couple of days ago, he's not around for the long haul. Bobby will not be around in 10 years. At least not as an active member of the roster. He's already 44 as it is, I believe. So with Bobby Lashley, this could be his last real run. It's not like he has another 10 years in him or he's going to win another 5 titles. This could be it for him. But as long as he's booked like a main event guy and he doesn't go back to facing Apollo Crews every week, and no disrespect to Crews, because Crews is doing good work now, and he always has, but you know what I mean. Like, I don't want to see him going, I don't want to see him go from this dominant main event heel to then doing absolutely nothing in the mid-card. You know what I mean? So I'm really hoping that he has a good run. Do I expect them to book him well? Honestly, I do, at least for right now. Maybe I'm just naive, and they'll just do typical WWE shit by having him lose the belt right back to Drew at WrestleMania. That is entirely possible. Entirely possible. But I'm hoping they won't do that, because if they've booked him well up to this point, well enough, it gives me hope that they will push him after the reign is over, and that they won't take the belt right off of him immediately. Like, again, I know they pushed Rusev hard for a year. He ran into John Cena, was never the same after that. I totally get it. But Bobby is a different beast than him or Bray or anyone else they've done this with in the last couple of years. They've been pushing him consistently. Consistently. Very few losses. MVP, I'm sure, has a lot to do with that. The Hurt Business are hot right now. So there's a lot more factors with him than there are with the other people. And they gave him the title. Unlike Bray, who they gave the title to like 3 years late, and Rusev, who they never gave the top title to, Bobby Lashley, they gave him the championship when the iron was hot. They struck while the iron was hot with Bobby Lashley, and it's awesome to see. Now the key, as we always say, and I feel like a broken record in saying this, the key is in the follow-up with Bobby Lashley. Will he win at WrestleMania? Will he drop the belt right back to Drew, which would be a fucking mistake? Would he drop the belt to Brock, which would be even worse? I don't know, and I really hope they don't. I feel like if they were going to go all the way with Bobby the way they have been lately, then they wouldn't squander that by having them lose so quick. But again, it's WWE. I hate that it's unpredictable like that, because if I had more faith in them, I would think, oh, yeah, no, it's fine. But honestly, sometimes it makes the outcomes of these matches very nerve-wracking, because you don't know if they'll do the dumb thing or not, because they've done the dumb thing before. Honestly, I think with the WWE has that, excuse me, they have that advantage in that they do the dumb thing from time to time. They make the wrong booking decision, so it makes you think that they'll do it again. Or they could get it right, because they get it right sometimes too. So it's very back and forth. It's very stressful sometimes to be a WWE fan. But when it pays off, like he did on Monday night. So hopefully he has a good run. He holds the belt for a while, and it's not short-lived, because I think that'd be a massive mistake. His second question, how do you view the AEW Women's Tournament overall? I know the finals are on Dynamite, but as far as match quality, do you think it came off well? Also, do you think they'll utilize the women better from now on? We talked a little bit about this with your question last week, but I think they will utilize them better. I feel they've given them a bunch of time on Dynamite. More matches should have aired on Dynamite, but at least of all the matches they've gotten so far, Nyla and Britt and then Thunder and Hirsch, they were given a decent amount of time. They were all given a decent amount of time. So I'm hoping that they'll continue to get more TV time in the future. Shida as well. She hasn't been on the show in like 2 months, but I think that's because she was over in Japan representing the company over there, which is fine. I think Riho did that at one point too, but she was gone forever. Riho was like, they just never, I mean, I guess with Shida too, they never even bothered to explain it, but Riho I just never did anything for me in that role whatsoever. Shida is at least a little more entertaining, way more entertaining, and a little more interesting too. But anyway, with the tournament, I think so far it's come off great in terms of the match quality. And I say so far because it's over tonight, but I think the match has been really good. My only issue with it is that, one, the booking on the U.S. side, like I said earlier, has been shit. Having Britt get eliminated when she did was dumb, and having Thunder Rosa get eliminated when she did was dumb. Really stupid. Because we know Nyla's not winning, so why is she in there? She hasn't even been on Dynamite before recently. She's constantly on Dark, even if that. Sometimes she's not even on Dark, so. Anyway, the matches themselves have been really, really good. They've been very good matches, specifically on the YouTube shows. I said this last week, they're not like absolutely must-see, go out of your way to watch it, but it's better than what I've expected from the division up to this point. So the wrestling is good, but by AEW standards, it's great, because we don't get a lot of great women's matches in this company. So it's a little weird. So like if the same matches happen in NXT, I would be like, who cares? You know what I mean? Because their women's division is just so much better, and they give it a lot more focus. In AEW, it's a step in the right direction. So I've enjoyed the shows. The match quality has been the best we've seen from the women's division so far. Way better than the Deadly Draw, which was a complete waste of time. But we'll see what happens tonight. I think Mizunami's winning. I think she absolutely will win, should win, has to win. And we'll see how good Shida and Mizunami is at the Revolution pay-per-view. His last question. Who would be on your Mount Rushmore of tag teams? Either WWE, Impact, or any combination of companies. So you mention Impact. I don't know if you mean, when you mention Impact, I'm thinking, okay, you're talking currently. If we're talking about like, I guess you're talking, I'm assuming you're talking all time. Because I feel like if you were talking currently, you wouldn't say Mount Rushmore. Mount Rushmore is usually reserved for like greatest of all time status. So I assume that's what you mean. And by that logic, this would be me. I don't know if you're saying personal tag teams or all-time tag teams. I'm going to go with all-time greatest tag teams. No bias, no favorites. I mean, some of these are my favorites, but I'm going to go off of my opinion who the 4 greatest tag teams of all time are. Okay? And again, this is all subjective, and I'll give my own, like, my favorite 4 tag teams since I've been a fan. I'll do that one too. But Mount Rushmore for greatest teams of all time, I'm going to go Road Warriors, obviously, would be number 1. Road Warriors, Dudley Boys. Not everyone's going to agree with that one, which is fine, but I would put them on there. Especially in the modern age where they've had as much success as they've had across all these companies. So I would put the Dudley Boys on there. Rock and Roll Express. And I want to say the Hardys, and you can say the Hardys, it's so fucking tough. I put the Hart Foundation on there, but the Hardys had more longevity, more success in other promotions beyond WWE. Hart Foundation worked well everywhere, but I don't know if they had a lot of longevity because Brett took off as a single. So, just because they already have the Dudleys on there, I'm just going to... man, it's tough. I'm going to say the Hart Foundation, but chiseled in stone right off to the right of the Mount Rushmore guys, I'm going to say the Hardy Boys. So, for my favorite tag teams, which I don't think you asked, but I'll throw it in there anyway, just because, my favorite Mount Rushmore tag teams... like in terms of like the 4 tag teams that are my favorites, Beer Money would probably be number 1. Beer Money, absolutely. You know, in WWE, I never really had like a favorite tag team. Probably the Usos, just because they've been around fucking forever. The Shield probably as well. Any iteration of the Shield was amazing. So the Shield, I did 2 WWE, so let me do 2 TNA. Beer Money. I love the British Invasion, but I'm probably going to go... Oh, man. Beer Money and, Motor City Machine Guns, probably. I'd probably put them in that category. I love the Motor City Machine Guns. So, for my favorite tag teams, Motor City Machine Guns, the Usos, the Shield, and Beer Money. So, from WWE, I'm trying to think, dude. I guess New Day, too. But I don't know. I've never really had, like, one favorite absolute greatest, like, oh, my God, I need to see this tag team reunite. At least as far as I can remember. I like the Primetime Players, but I probably wouldn't put them on that list. Undisputed Era, probably. But I don't know if I would put them over the Shield or the Usos, so it's hard to say. But those would be my Mount Rushmore favorites, and I already gave you the Mount Rushmore of the greatest tag teams of all time. At Iwagoon91 from Twitter... Their first question was here. Had Batista changed his mind about leaving WWE in 2010, do you think he wouldn't have lost to John Cena in 3 straight pay-per-views? You know what? Probably not. I would say yes, just because they were trying to put over Cena on Batista's way out. That was the only reason why Batista lost 3 pay-per-views, I think. I think if he wasn't leaving... Maybe they would have put the belt back on Batista at like the Extreme Rules pay-per-view, and then Cena would have beat him for it at the May pay-per-view at Over the Limit. Kind of like what they did with Cena and Orton in 2009, where Cena won the belt, Orton won it back, and then Cena won it back from him literally in the stretch of like a month and a half. I could see them doing that with Cena and Batista in 2010. So, otherwise, why else would you have Batista lose 3 times? Obviously, he was trying to solidify Cena as the main event guy, which he already was, obviously, in 2010, but he was trying to solidify Cena as the real face of that ruthless aggression period on his way out. They probably would have done the first match, maybe another one, and maybe Batista would have won the second one, just so he didn't lose all of his heat. But if he wasn't leaving and they didn't want to do that, maybe they just have Cena win a WrestleMania, and that's it, and they go back to a rematch down the road. You know, but those matches were really good, and I really enjoyed the feud. Batista's line about, hugging babies, it's kissing babies and hugging fat girls, and the build-up to WrestleMania, which was a great line from Batista when he had, like, the choke chain on. Heel Batista was money. I love heel Batista, but, that's what I figured would have happened. What you do with Cena from there, they probably would have kicked off the Nexus stuff anyway. Batista probably would have stayed on SmackDown, because that was where he was best anyway. His second question, considering that the 44-year-old Bobby Lashley won his first WWE Championship, is it not too late for the 40-year-old Cesaro to become world champion in the WWE? You know, I don't think with Cesaro it's an age thing. I don't think with Cesaro it's like, he's 40, can't put the belt on him. 10 years ago when he first showed up in the company, he was 30. So I don't think it's, he's just too old. I mean, AJ Styles won his first championship when he was 40. Like you said, Bobby Lashley is the current WWE champion. Brock's 40-something. You know, I know Cesaro is no Brock Lesnar, but age, for better or for worse, is not really a factor to this company when it comes to putting top titles on people. Goldberg was the fucking champion last year. I mean, come on. And I know, again, Cesaro is not Goldberg, but still, I don't think age is really a factor. And Bobby Lashley, you would never know he's 44 anyway. So, no, it's not. It probably is too late for Cesaro, because I feel like the time to put the belt on him would have been 5 years ago, 6-7 years ago. But hey, Lashley's the current champion, so you never know. It's never too late. They could always put the belt on him if they want. But I don't think it's going to be because, he's 40. Got to do it before he gets older. I mean, again, Bobby's 44, so I don't think age really matters to them, to be honest with you. I think they would do it just because they want to push Cesaro. But I think the issue with Cesaro isn't his age. It's the fact that Vince just doesn't seem as a main event guy. he doesn't seem as being WWE champion material or world champion material. Again, I hope I'm wrong. But you can never be too sure. And I hope he does win it. With the push that he's been getting lately, I hope he does win a world championship in 2021. Do I think he will? No, I think those days are long gone, unfortunately. But again, I hope I'm wrong. The next question comes from, I don't know how you pronounce this, but it's spelled Lil, so Lil, JD Cusick, CUSIC 3 from Twitter. What are your thoughts on people turning on Drew McIntyre? Are they? I mean, there's no fans there to really determine, people are turning on Drew. I haven't seen all this backlash for Drew on my timeline. Maybe I just follow the right people. I don't know. I'm not denying that there's people who just don't think Drew's a great champion or are bored of him. I talk to people like that a lot, but surprisingly. I don't think that's the overwhelming majority, though. And maybe a few people. I feel like it's the vast minority that are turning on Drew. You know what's going to happen eventually, because people just can't fucking accept, people in prominent positions. It has to be new. Every champion we get has to be new. You know what I mean? I don't want to see Randy as champion again, to be honest with you, or a Goldberg or a Brock. But there are people who were former champions like a Drew who could win the belt back. Roman's a fucking 5-time champion. He's not new. I mean, I guess the heel stuff is new. But he's had a great run recently. So with Drew, I don't want to see him win the belt back at WrestleMania. It's not a Drew thing. I think that's just, I think it would be stupid to cut Bobby Lashley's push short. So it's not, take the belt off Drew because fuck Drew McIntyre. If he held the belt going into Mania, no one would have complained. Or at least not a lot of people would have complained, in my opinion. So, again, if people are turning on Drew, it's the vast minority. And again, there's no fans there anyway, so it really doesn't matter. At E13A, their question was, have you heard about Big Cass and his recent return? I did, him and Enzo at that indie show. I saw the footage a couple days ago. Looks to be in great shape. The thing with Enzo and Cass is that I was a big fan of those guys in NXT when they first got called up. Super fan of theirs, bought a t-shirt. And then, I don't know what happened. Just a combination of the stuff that you would hear about them behind the scenes, the fact they fizzled out and the creative just ruined them, broke them up. I just could not give two shits about Cass, and I could not give two shits about Enzo. Honestly, even when they showed up at that Ring of Honor show 2 years ago, I didn't want to see them in Ring of Honor. I don't give a fuck about these guys at this point. I feel like their time would have been 5 years ago. They just, WWE never capitalized, and they've become a little problematic. Enzo seems like a cool dude. Big Cass seems to have his head more on his shoulders than Enzo does in terms of his attitude. But he also had apparently a lot of alcohol issues in the last couple of years. Cass has been kind of out of the picture for a while now. I haven't seen anything about Big Cass in a year and a half. They were doing the independent rounds about in late 2019. I had a chance to meet both guys multiple times. I just never did. I really did. At this point, just don't care about Enzo and Cass. So if they were to come back, would it be cool for a couple of weeks? Probably. First of all, there's no fans, so it wouldn't matter anyway. Second of all, I just feel like bringing back Enzo and Cass at this point is not the answer to their tag team woes. They need more tag teams. Enzo and Cass are not the answer. They were never that good in the ring to begin with. They were just very popular with the fans. If the fans aren't buying you, then the tag team shtick just doesn't work. So anyway, as far as Big Cass is concerned, he looks great. If he's feeling a lot better now mentally, physically, emotionally, that's awesome. I'm really glad he's back on track because some people were really worried about him for a while. In late 2019, when he was found at that convention, he was convulsing on the ground or something. So hopefully he's doing a lot better in that respect, and he's doing well. So I thought that was cool to see. His second question, will Bobby Lashley defend the WWE Championship at WWE Fastlane? I think he will. Whether it be against Drew or Drew and Miz in a triple threat. Listen, this is their first pay-per-view on Peacock. So I'd be very surprised if they didn't have a WWE Championship match on that show. Definitely Universal, I can almost guarantee you of that after what's been teased so far with Roman and Bryan. But I would be very surprised if we don't get Bobby versus Miz or Bobby versus Drew, or probably not Brock, nor should they do that at Fastlane. But one of those two matches, either him and Miz, again, hopefully not, or him and Drew, hopefully not. I mean, maybe, unless, if the triple threat at WrestleMania is what they're going to do, then maybe. Or a triple threat on this show. But if you're going to do a triple threat at WrestleMania, then probably not. So, anyway, I think he will. I think he will defend the championship at Fastlane. Who his opponent will be, as of right now, I have no clue, but that's part of the mystery. And I don't even know if they know. That's the problem. His last question here. What's going to happen this Sunday at AEW Revolution? Full-on predictions are coming tomorrow on WrestleRant Radio. Cheap plug. But I think it'll be a good show. There's a couple of matches that I just think are incredibly random, like another Casino Battle Royale. Come on, man. Who cares? The multi-man, the multi-team matches have got to fucking end. I know they have like 4 pay-per-views a year, but like the tag team Casino Battle Royal, who cares? Who cares, honestly? Hardy and Page, I love both guys. The winner earning, the loser's earnings. Who cares? Again, who gives a shit? Miro and Kip Sabian versus Chuck Taylor and Orange Cassidy. Again, who cares? Shida and Mizunami, I honestly don't really care, but it should be a good match. What else do we even have? The ladder match should be cool. That should be a great match, but it's incredibly random. I am looking forward to Darby Allin and Sting versus Team Taz. I think that'll be a good match. Maybe not, I don't know if it'll be great, but seeing Sting back in the ring or whatever it is, seeing Sting wrestle again, compete again, cinematic or not, should be a lot of fun. And then Moxley and Omega, I don't even know what to think about that main event. That stipulation to me, it's not my cup of tea personally, but I'm intrigued to see what they'll do with it. So I am mildly excited for that match, just to see how far they'll really go, and whether I can shit about it here on the show in a week from now. So I don't know what's going to happen. I honestly have no clue. More predictions coming tomorrow on the show, but I'm looking forward to the AEW pay-per-views because they usually are pretty good. So I am looking forward to Sunday. But I don't know, half of this card just feels thrown together the same way that All Out did back late last year. And Full Gear was a way better show. And that had more of a stat card on paper, and they delivered. All Out did not have a stat card, and it did not deliver. So I'm hoping Revolution is not All Out 2.0. At Scarlet1 from Twitter, final 2 questions here. Do you think Paul White will make a big impact in AEW? Pun intended. No, I really don't. I'm not going to shit on it as much as some other people have, but I don't think it's really this huge signing. I know he's a big guy, but like him competing occasionally for AEW is not going to make a lick of a difference. Not saying that like Matt Hardy's matches make more of a difference than Big Show's, but like from an on-air standpoint, Matt Hardy's doing way more than Big Show ever could and ever should at this point in his career. Big Show's 50 now? 49? Shouldn't be wrestling regularly. Maybe on occasion, but not regularly. And just as a commentator, I'm sure he's going to be fine, but it's not like he's this great get. It's a big signing because he's a big name, and we all never really thought he would leave WWE. But it's not like, oh man, I got to watch Dynamite to see what Big Show's going to do. I didn't give a shit about him at the end of his WWE run. I don't really give a shit about him now. I'll watch Dark Elevation because I review all that stuff anyway, and I'm sure he'll do fine in the role. But honestly, I really don't think he's going to pay dividends for this company the same way a lot of these other people they've signed could or will. Like, I think Sting, he's brought in a lot of merchandise. He's been on the show more than he should be. But he can help, give the rub to Darby Allin, and he's just interesting to watch. Big Show to me is not interesting. He's way too overexposed. So, as a commentator, it works. If we get him and Shaq out of it selfishly, hey, you know what? We'll see. That's a match I've wanted to see for a long time just to see how bad it would be. So maybe I'll soon get my wish. But other than that, though, I really don't have a lot of interest in Paul White in AEW. Hey, he'll probably have a decent run there and he'll make a lot of money. That's great. WWE probably realized he wasn't worth whatever they were paying him just because he was never really around. Nor should he be. Just they've done everything up at this point. I feel like a change of scenery helps really everybody. So not to shit on the guy. I don't think it's a bad signing. I just don't think it's going to be this huge deal. Like, I feel like in a month from now, it's not going to make that much of a difference. And he's just not a difference maker. At this point in his career, he's not a difference maker. I know Sting is 10 years older, but Sting was 10 times a bigger star than Big Show ever was, in my opinion. But that's a different discussion for a different day. Scarlett's second question and the final question. Thoughts on Randy Orton's beef with Soulja Boy? Yeah, that was an entertaining Tuesday morning when we all woke up and we saw that Bobby Lashley was the new WWE champion. And Soulja Boy was feuding with Randy Orton on Twitter in an alternate 2007 storyline. Alternate 2007 timeline. Carly getting rebooted. I feel like it's 2007, honestly, all over again. I really do. But yeah, Soulja Boy got owned. He was making a joke about like WWE being fake. And listen, it was a dumb thing to say, but I saw the tweet and it was like one of those typical... It wasn't meant to be a shot at WWE. Whatever he was tweeting about was just meant to be a joke. It wasn't like, oh, fuck this wrestling stuff. Like, when that happens, I can see why the wrestlers get upset. Soulja Boy's tweet, he just called WWE fake because he was referencing something else. He was making a comparison. And then the fact that it really got out of hand was because he just kept responding to these people. Probably because he realized he was getting clout out of it, having not been relevant since 2007. in 14 years. And it was just really entertaining. Orton just doesn't give a fuck. He's one of the best follows on Twitter. Renee Young put it best that Randy Orton is a very solid Twitter follow. You never know what you're going to get with him, specifically when you wake up and you see that he was tweeting at 3 o'clock in the morning. What the hell is this guy doing? You know what I mean? So, anyway, it was entertaining. For better or for worse. Just car crash TV. And I guess congrats to the Soulja Boy for reminding me that he exists again. I completely forgot about him since 2008, since I last heard Crank That Soulja Boy song. But, hey, Randy Orton's new nickname, it might as well be, instead of the Legend Killer, Career Reviver. This guy is just pulling people back up out of their irrelevancy, left and right. So congrats to Orton and Soulja Boy for entertaining me on a Tuesday morning. So that's going to do it, guys, for episode 379. Episode 379 here today of #AskGSM for Wednesday, March 3rd, 2021. Thank you, as always, for checking out the show. I appreciate it. Be sure to like the video, drop a comment, share the video, and subscribe to the channel for more daily content. Hit that bell button as well to be notified every time a new video goes up. Thank you, guys, as always, and once again, for subscribing and supporting the channel, helping me surpass 5,000 subscribers this past week. Huge milestone. Appreciate you guys for that. And if you haven't already, check out my interviews this past week with Shayna Baszler today in audio form here on the channel, and Bobby Lashley, the new WWE champion, for Monday morning. And more eventually to come as well. So again, if you haven't already subscribed, please do so. You will not regret it. And if you want to send in a question to the show as well, I forgot to say this, you can tweet me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the #AskGSM. Find me on Facebook as well, facebook.com/Graham.GSM.Matthews. Drop a comment on the post that I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not on the wall itself. And be sure to find here, you can leave a comment on this very video, and you can get your question answered on the show next week. Now, have a great one, guys. Enjoy your month of March. I'm Graham GSM Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.